Hello. Oh, there we go. The screens are down. Hello, everyone. Welcome to In Time. Thank you so much for joining us. With me today, of course, is Operator Starsky. Commander Lance McMillan is actually not able to make it. I'll close his screen in a second so we don't have any confusion. Starsky, how are you?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. Sorry for that echo there. We got that sorted out. I'm doing well, thank you. So, people have already noticed, and I'm going to explain this again real quick for those of you who haven't. We In Time is an educational and a current events channel. We split our content. We split our content so that if you're interested in breaking news, all the news and political stuff, you can go to one channel. If you're interested in the much more educational, talking about either philosophy, psychology, news media, stuff that's, not necessarily happening right now, but it's still educational content, that's Overtime. They're streaming this on both channels today. We don't like to do it. It's a pain in the neck, but Overtime needs to get to 1,000 subs in order to be an independent channel. And we're about 50 short. So we're hoping that today everyone can go hit Overtime, subscribe, and we will not do this again because all of us hate it and makes it confusing. And I know the live chat doesn't like it either. So, but we're doing this on Overtime to try to get that remaining 50. So if you can do that and subscribe, we really appreciate it. Because it hasn't hit 1,000, it is not monetized, so we cannot take super chats. There is a pinned link to the In Time channel where we are also subscribing. We can't take super chats there. All super chats are going to the charity of Starsky's choice. Operator Starsky has chosen the 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐴 volunteer organization, and so all super chats, everything that we get, 100% of what we get from YouTube on these super chats goes straight to that organization. So we hope you will come in, and we'll try to get any comments, but the super chats just go straight to us and straight to Starsky, so we will hopefully you can go to the In Time channel and help us out there. But if you can like and subscribe on Overtime, we're hoping today we can get that all taken care of and never do this again. Before I do get to Operator Starsky, one other thing that we've been covering on our Discord. So we know that Prigozhin has been very upset with Russia. The Wagner Group has been getting more and more critical of Russia. Prigozhin sometimes looks completely unhinged, and sometimes, I don't know, I'm not an expert on him or the Wagner Group, and hopefully next time we see Commander McMillan, we can talk to him about it. I look forward to asking Operator Starsky some questions about it, but about 24 hours ago, he came out and basically said, we'll read his statement in a little bit, but he basically said that all of the war in Ukraine is based on lies. It was oligarchs and upper members of Russia basically trying to get awards, medals, and burnish their credentials, and to split Ukraine, which he seemed to admit that, in his view, at least, some of that was a good goal, but they've gone for too much and, have been killing innocent people. In his mind, I think he's more concerned about the Russians, but nonetheless, for too long. Shortly thereafter, we believe the Wagner Group was hit by a missile. I don't know what position of theirs it was, but apparently Prigozhin got very upset and said that they were deliberately attacked by the Russian military. This wasn't just cutting off their ammunition. This wasn't just booby-trapping their way out of positions, which he's made accusations of before, but a deliberate attack by the Russian military on the Wagner group. That is his claim. He has now taken to, I think he used his official Telegram channel to come out and say that he has declared war on Russia. The claim, let's see, that he is saying, and this is happening right now, which is why we're covering it. Let me see if I can find his actual, how he phrased it here. Okay, and then and we know part of this has now been confirmed by Reuters. We haven't been able to confirm all of this. This is, I mean, just happening. And again, I don't know, the capabilities of the Wagner Group have been greatly diminished, and I highly doubt that Ukraine would be willing to fight side by side with them. But having said that, if they decide to attack Russia on the northern border with Ukraine, I don't know what on earth Russia can do about it, and it's only going to help Ukraine. We will get to all of that. We're still sorting that. That's what we're looking at right now. We're obviously going to ask Operator Starsky about that. But, sir, thank you so much for coming. Could you tell us what's been going on in the... It's been a crazy week. So I'm going to bring up the map here. And could you tell us what's been going on in Ukraine?
A lot of airstrikes on Ukrainian cities every night, including now. We know that several Russian bombers are heading towards their launch positions near the Caspian Sea. Is the usual launch site. And obviously tonight they will also attempt to strike some of the cities, maybe Kryvyi Rih again. So they repeatedly strike Kryvyi Rih because it's a city in Dnipro Oblast, Dnipro Oblast. And the reason they're striking Kryvyi Rih so often is because there's absolutely no military targets there. There's absolutely nothing significant in this area, and except for like old iron mines, you know, things like that. And the city and the region around this city, it doesn't have as strong air defense as in other cities, specifically because there's no significant targets there. That's why Russians probed the air defense in other cities. They came to conclusion that they can easily strike this one because they can target civilians, and they know for sure that they can eliminate a lot of civilian people. So it's basically like a psychological trick. That's why they keep striking Kryvyi Rih. Also, President Zelensky was born in Kryvyi Rih. Maybe that's the reason as well. Tonight, they launched 13 cruise missiles targeting Khmelnytsky. It's Western Ukraine, and the reason they did that was because the day earlier, a bridge in Chongar was hit, basically disrupting the connection between Crimea and Kherson region. So it crippled their logistics big time, and they decided to have revenge and attack Khmelnytsky, some air base, obviously in the area of Khmelnytsky, and they launched 13 missiles, and all of them were intercepted. So basically this attack failed. Maybe they will try one tonight. Maybe it's just a training flight, but during their training flights they still launch cruise missiles, usually like 4 cruise missiles at random targets, wherever they can strike. Another very, very important thing was two Democratic Party and Republican Party, and they are known basically for being among the biggest supporters of Ukraine. They created a resolution stating that nuclear attack on Ukraine equals attack on the NATO bloc, because there's a lot of NATO troops stationed in Europe around Ukraine. That's why it doesn't matter what kind of nuclear attack will be conducted on Ukraine, either using nuclear weapons or destroying nuclear power plants, this will equal as an attack on NATO, and the response will be appropriate. That is very important, because one of the biggest topics that are that is discussed a lot in Ukraine is what happens if Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant gets destroyed or sabotaged, and the authorities in Ukraine created a lot of different pamphlets and informational materials, basically explaining to the citizens what to do in case of nuclear disaster or nuclear strike. So we are talking a lot about it in Ukraine, in the media, in the society, because that's one of the, let's say, important things that can happen. And yeah, Prigozhin, of course. Regarding Prigozhin, I think what they say: play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That's exactly what happened to Prigozhin and Wagner, and I expected something like that. Of course, I guess the only thing that can save Prigozhin is basically giving up to the armed forces of Ukraine. He will be transferred to a court and face justice, but he will remain alive, that's for sure. Because I don't think that he has enough troops to fight, to wage the war against Russia. They literally have too many policemen there in their country, so they can easily defend Russia against Wagnerites, but they're still able to do some damage. So I prepared a lot of popcorn in order to see how the situation will develop.
Well, it's only 100, and we've had a couple of questions in the live chat that I want to address, but it was only I think it was on the order of about 100 members of the Free Russia Army, or Russian Free. I'm going to have to memorize that. It was the two breakaways that are Russian military, but actually invaded Russian space. It was about 100 people, is my understanding, and they've still been able to occupy. I don't. It doesn't seem to me, I mean, I don't know the capabilities of Wagner. They've been so diminished. It's not something that I've been paying attention to anymore. And so now that he's saying that he's going to attack, and I had the I had the exact text just a minute ago, and of course I moved it because I'm juggling multiple pieces of information here, but yeah, I'd really like to know. I mean, it's going to be interesting. So far, he has yet to outright criticize Putin himself, but he's come as close as he ever has, saying that everybody in the Russian government is responsible for the lies about denazification, and I don't see Prigozhin having a lot of pull anymore, so I don't know what this is going to do. We've had a couple of questions about, is this a civil war? Well, it's a mercenary unit, so whatever they do doesn't speak for anybody in the Russian military or for the Russian civilians. But and since they're drawing so much from Russian citizens, I don't know how interested they are in attacking. But if they've been actually hit by Russian artillery, which is what it appears to have happened, and we have footage of it. In fact, we may play that in just a minute. I can understand them getting pissed, but I'm curious to see what he can do. Like I said, this is a question out of Saved for Lance. I agree. I think it's going to be a popcorn moment, and a lot of comeuppance. What I've seen of Prigozhin, and I haven't seen all the videos of him purportedly going cray-cray, but, he usually seems to have a pretty good understanding of what's going on militarily. Having said that, that suggests to me that he should have realized very early on that Russia was the aggressor in this war, and the fact that he's only responding to that now is really convenience and speaks very much to his character as being a truly evil son of a bitch. At least that's my point of view. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree on that. Regarding the civil war, I would not call it civil, because there is no civil society in Russia. Nobody cares at all what happens and who kills who in Russia. That's why it's probably just a conflict between forces. Basically, generals, those old Soviet Russian generals, hate Prigozhin for all the benefits they had. Prigozhin hates those generals because they do everything they can in order to get rid of Wagnerites, and it was supposed to happen. At the same time, Prigozhin is a very, very rich dude, because his mercenaries in Africa are responsible for delivering things like precious metals and diamonds to Russia. I think Putin doesn't want to lose all this, of course. That's why that's one of the reasons, and probably the biggest reason, why Prigozhin is still alive. But Prigozhin controls all that, and he's a very rich dude. So basically, he can allow himself a lot of things in Russia. So yeah, we are expecting to see some action. Not like I think it's gonna change a lot in people's minds. Again, because there's absolutely no civil society in Russia. Nobody cares at all.
If Prigozhin offers intelligence, and there's rumors he's actually given some intelligence to Ukraine, if he offers intelligence to Ukraine and asks for intelligence that can be used to attack Russia back, what, in your best estimation, and this strikes me as a scenario nobody's really, I may be wrong, it may be, you guys have been workshopping this, and you had said, and you predicted this a very long time ago, that he'd either be dead or that end up, turning on Russia because they're mercenaries, and they're, Russia's going to not treat them even as mercenaries the way they expect it, and the whole thing is going to fall apart. But what in your view do you think Ukraine will do if they begin sharing intelligence, but also ask for intelligence specifically that they can use to attack Russia? How do you think Ukraine would respond to
that? As I said, we are a lawful country, and of course Prigozhin will stay alive. He will not be eliminated by our special forces. Nothing like that. He will stay alive. I know that he knows a lot of information, so it will be very, very important for us. So we will save his life. As easy as that. Not like he's gonna receive a yacht, villa somewhere in Italy or in, I don't know, Carpathian Mountains in Ukraine and change his name, etc. He's a criminal, and he has to face justice, but he will stay alive. Otherwise, his chances of staying alive is basically zero.
All right, we've got a number of super chats. We will get to those in a minute. Again, all of those will be going to the 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐴 Volunteer Organization. One other question that was not a super chat, at least if it was, I haven't seen it yet, but I think is a good question. We've been talking, okay, so let's quickly talk about, it was Senator Lindsey Graham and I've forgotten who, what her name was, the other one who is, they have posited a resolution saying that any attack in Ukraine that's nuclear, and that would include a dirty bomb and or detonating, for example, Zaporizhzhia, would be considered an attack on NATO on the grounds that any fallout would go into a NATO country and therefore damage NATO assets, thus is an attack. Now, this resolution, as I understand it, is it's Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal. Sorry, it's not
Senator Blumenthal. Yeah.
Yep. But it's what's interesting. I mean, I'm curious to know, and again, this is something that Lance Commander McMillan would know better than I. The problem is, just because the U.S. adopts this resolution, which it has, by the way, not yet, and I don't know what the possibility is of it passing. Let's assume it passes. Let's assume the U.S. adopts this resolution. The problem is, what they could do is they could then ask for Article 5 to be triggered, but this resolution is not binding to NATO. On the flip side, it's the U.S. So if the U.S. says this is what we should do, so I think it's interesting and worth following. Do you have, I have two questions for you. One, are you optimistic that this will have an impact in influencing NATO and or stronger declarations about protecting the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant? And a second question, but related, just how big a threat do you think the attack on Zaporizhzhia is? They've been saying it's going to happen for a while. It has not yet happened. How likely do you think is an eventual attack on Zaporizhzhia if resolutions like this are not passed?
I give almost 100% that it's going to happen. After what happened with the Kakhovka Dam, also the Ukrainian military intelligence warned about this terrorist act. They were warning that the Russians were planting explosives at the Kakhovka Dam, and they will try to demolish this dam. As for the Zaporizhzhia power plant, they did install charges in the supporting station next to the power station itself, and there are also mines that were installed inside of the Zaporizhzhia power plant, which was also confirmed by the IAEA. So I think almost 100% that is going to happen. What type of nuclear disaster in Zaporizhzhia power plant? There are different reactors than those that were installed in Chernobyl power plant, for example. They contain less radioactive materials, almost twice as less, 2 times less than in Chernobyl. And they also have better security. In case anything happens to a reactor, it gets buried.
It gets shut.
Yeah. There is a special area below the reactor. It just goes down and it gets covered and stuff. And each reactor can withstand several big aviation bombs, so like exploding directly on them. So there were several statements made by the people who built this station. There were also several statements made by nuclear experts, and they say that in case they even try to blow up explosives, they need a lot of them in order to produce something like what happened in Chernobyl, at least. But still, it may happen. I remember after the Fukushima disaster, our experts tried to improve the Zaporizhzhia power plant in case something similar happens. Of course, we're not talking about tsunami, because there can be no tsunami in Zaporizhzhia, of course. At the same time, like earthquakes, things like that, meteorite strikes, I don't know. So it can withstand a lot of damage, but I don't think that those experts predicted what's gonna happen if Russians invade Ukraine and plant a lot of Russian explosives around reactors and try to, set it off. So that's one thing. As for the possibility that the U.S. troops can interfere into this, intervene, right?
Yes.
Into this war, I am optimistic. I am, because nothing can stop this war faster than NATO troops involved into this war. That's my opinion.
One other important thing about Zaporizhzhia. So Chernobyl was an accident, and while the top was blown off the reactor, there was severe damage to containment. Obviously, it wasn't, everything was getting thrown up into the atmosphere and then would blow where the wind blew, but it wasn't a complete detonation or destruction of the entire containment system. It also wasn't an ignition of either nuclear waste or any of the nuclear fuel. If you actually detonated that fuel, if you detonated the reactor itself, you would blast all of that around the area. And aside from contaminating the area, you've now dramatically increased the surface area of the fuel that is being exposed to the air. So, a chunk of uranium has a limited amount of surface area, but if you detonate it and explode it up into a whole bunch of smaller pieces, a lot more radiation is coming out a lot faster from that same piece of uranium. So, I think that makes sense. The tsunami that took out Fukushima was also, it wasn't, there's a very big difference between those things for which we have some protective measures and for a deliberate detonation. So I think you're right. It's a different thing. We also have, before I get to the super chats too, I just wanted to, this is an image of the bridge that you had been talking about. Now, my understanding is that this has actually as much as doubled the supply time for Russia to supply its troops. That's the bridge getting hit. Because basically they have to go either now so far north or so far south of this bridge, and then back up to try to hit that same road or get to that same road. That this has now doubled their supply line, and this seems to be most of what Ukraine is doing now, is actually doing damage to the logistics. Is that are those two statements both reasonably accurate?
We are doing it all the time, basically, since the beginning of the invasion. One thing, though, that I forgot to address was the question regarding this resolution
Yes.
proposed by two senators. To me, it looks like a political response, because it's like when the Russians were, trying to scare everybody with statements that they will use nuclear weapons against other countries, against Ukraine and stuff. That no, they were given a sign, a clear message that they will not gonna use nukes. Then Russians tried to push even further. They tried to, there were statements made by people like Medvedev, Putin as well, and the response made by the US and NATO, again, it was that there's no signs that Russia is gonna use nukes for real. And now they're transferring some of the tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus. And this resolution was basically a political response to this. So it's like, exchange of steps.
So sort of this incremental, as Russia makes provocative moves, the U.S. is senators in the U.S. are responding. Essentially, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So, and then one other thing, because we've heard a lot of people talking sort of on all sides of the issue. This is the map as of today, and progress is being made. Basically, my understanding is almost universally across that front. But a lot of people are pointing out it's slower progress than last year when on that offensive. Now, this is a question I would normally ask Commander McMillan, and the reason is because I am aware you have some reasonably significant limitations on when I ask questions about overall tactics and strategy, whereas the commander does not. But my understanding is that while people have said, yes, the offensive has begun, in a military sense, to some extent, it hasn't begun. And the reason is a large number of Ukrainian forces, at least in my understanding, have not actually yet been deployed. And much of this is actually probing. So what they're doing is they're trying to figure out where the lines are weakest and where they're going to bring the full weight of the Ukrainian army. So to suggest that this is the bulk of the offensive in any way, I think, is a significant misunderstanding of what is going on. So my question is that an accurate representation in your view, if you can answer that question? And B, can we expect that there will be a significant offensive once Ukraine has analyzed where Russia is weakest and decides to actually deploy the full weight of its forces in a particular area?
Yes, this looks logical to me. I think that when such spot is found, we will see a lot of Russians running. Currently, again, because war is basically switching between action and reaction, like constant switching between action and reaction. And currently, we saw that 8 villages were liberated in the past 2 weeks, which is again 8 times more than the Russians managed to capture in 2023. So to me, it does look like a progress. But of course, generally, when we look at this map, for example, it doesn't look as impressive as it looked in Kherson or in Kharkiv Oblast. But I'm very, very optimistic regarding this, because I think that we will definitely see something like that.
I think it's very difficult. I can only imagine. I think it's difficult I know it's difficult for me. I know it's difficult for people watching who want to see that huge progress, and they want to see it not in a month, not in a week, not tomorrow. They want to see it 5 days ago. and I think that's a great sign for how much people really want to see Ukraine succeed. My suspicion is Ukrainians want to see it over a year ago, but they're pacing themselves. They're doing this the right way, and unfortunately, wars are just fucking slow. But if they're done right, that's how you win. So I think we're looking at something that's going to turn into something very different in a couple of weeks, and it's going to be very positive. But all right, so Cheryl Watley, $9.99. Silicon Curtain has an excellent interview with military analyst Frank Ledwidge about let's see, that part of that's cut off, so I need it 1 second here. About aligning our goals with Ukraine and improving supply chains by providing a steady supply of M19s, Abrams, and Bradleys. Cheryl, if you could get a link to that either to Ali or to Titan, whoever's most available, and if Ali or Titan could post that in the live chat so we can have that there, but also send me a copy because I would like to see that myself. Any thoughts on that, Starsky?
The thing that I think a lot of is that things like Abrams tanks, HIMARS systems, Patriot systems, we could only dream about them last year. And we can see this growing support of Ukraine in terms of military support. So probably we will see, again, F-16s very, very, very soon flying over Ukraine. One thing I wanted to mention regarding the counteroffensive, basically, last year, for example, the counteroffensive in Kharkiv region was completely unexpected because we were talking about the counteroffensive in Kherson for a year. And suddenly we all witnessed what happened in the Kharkiv region, all those running Russians. Then the same counteroffensive in Kherson area with all those vehicles, all the tanks, all the artillery systems left abandoned by the Russian invaders. And again, it happened completely unexpected. Yes, we were talking about them and discussing those opportunities like almost every day, but nobody expected to see that in such a scale. So yes, here in Ukraine, we're waiting for this to happen for already 485 days. Of course, everybody wants this war to finish to be finished tomorrow. But realistically, it's not that easy, unfortunately.
If you could have one weapon system tomorrow that you do not yet have access to, that is credible. Let's take tactical nukes off the table. One weapon system that you would like to have access to tomorrow that you do not have, that you would strongly like to encourage the U.S. Or another country to make available to Ukraine as soon as possible, what would it be?
It's a tough question because we not only we need offensive weapons, we also need defensive weapons. There's no sense to protect a country that is completely destroyed, and there are no people to protect. So we need things like CRAMs, of course, because of the Shahed drones, CRAMs, or maybe Gepard tanks.
And, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, to defend our cities from Shahed drones, the cargo airplanes keep flying between Iran and Russia, delivering those drones, delivering other equipment, and we need some very, very solid measures against those Shahed drones, because they are quite nasty.
And we do have, like I said, we're going to get into Prigozhin in a minute, but we do have now, I just got this, Titan, thank you, the Moscow Times confirming that a Moscow strike has killed a, quote, huge number of Wagner forces. Obviously, I assume they're going to say that was an accident, given how we see Russians aiming. I think that's credible, but I don't think anyone's thinking that's an accident, and we're going to, again, get into that. But so that we just got that. So it's looking more and more like, yeah, we'll get into it. All right, so let's see. Starsky, this is from Crazy Cat 1, £5. Starsky, I saw your Times Radio interview, your one-liner. we don't want to talk about them. We just want to kill them, or we don't want to talk to them. We just want to. Yeah, I saw that. That was you had been asked, I think, what would Russians like to say, and as long as Russians are in Ukraine, the average Ukrainian doesn't want to talk to them. They want to kill them. I think, was that an accurate quote?
Yeah, those were my guys. Basically, I was making them what they wanted to tell the Russian invaders, because they say different stuff, and they said, like, majority of those guys said that they don't want to talk to them, they want to kill them. That's why they're there. And currently I got a bit distracted because we have another air alert. We know about 6 bombers heading towards the Caspian Sea, and also MiG-31 took off in Belarus. Those are used as carrying platforms for 𝐋𝐚𝐦𝐚 missiles. So currently we have an alert over the whole Ukraine.
Well, they've been striking a lot more at night now, which they didn't used to do. This basically looks like it's turned into a terror. You have already called it basically a terror organization from the beginning. You had pointed out that the only difference between Russia and Al-Qaeda is that the Russian terrorists have military IDs. But it looks like, that's really, you said earlier that they're striking just random areas, which is probably more effective for the reason that you mentioned, which is you have air defenses over targets that would be military targets, not over, just random areas in Ukraine. So they're striking random areas, and they're doing it at night now, ostensibly to disrupt any ability for even civilians to get sleep. Is that accurate? And if so, is it having that effect? What's the effect on the average Ukrainian right now, given this change in the nature of the attacks?
The fact is that people have to wake up in the night. They have to wake up their children and get to the shelter and sleep there. Usually it's like a subway station or a basement or similar location. But we are doing it for 2 months straight, every single night in Ukraine.
I do have the commander has actually, I think, sent me a question or two, so I look forward to getting to that in a second. That was a good interview on Times Radio, so hopefully Ahmad can find that and drop it. Sean B, $20, 𝐒𝐴𝐤 Ukraini, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate your support. Lynn, 13 Canadian, thank you again. Really helps us out, and obviously it's great to be able to pass that on to the 𝐍𝐤 Volunteer Organization. 13.99 Canadian. Hi Starsky, this is from level 70. Hi Starsky, you mentioned your brigade will be deployed near the front line soon in your Times Radio interview. When and will we be seeing less of you online?
My brigade is already deployed there because since the beginning of the big war, there was our battalion tactical group operating in the East Ukraine on Donbass, and we never left Donbass since then. There was not a single day or month when we had all of our battalions back at the base. So currently our battalions continue fighting there at the front lines. Also new battalions that were formed in frames of the assault guard. They continue training, and it's like this. Our brigade is located like physically in several places of Ukraine. Different battalions of our brigade, they continue fighting. Other battalions continue training. So this is how it looks like. When I'm told to go to the front lines, that's what I will do, and hopefully I will be able to make content there. Basically, I think that I will, because as a press officer, of course, I will have access to internet and things like that, and I'm taking all of my stuff with me, so I will be able to make those videos.
Well, they need people on the front lines, and you've done that kind of combat before. But having said that, they also need people getting the word out. So they have more positions right now in Ukraine that need to be filled than they have people to fill them. There's a lot going on. Let's see. I do recommend that Times radio interview. I think I mentioned that. Oh, right. And then Claire Noel, $5. Oh, actually, before we do that, sorry, there was one other question, and it just came back to me. You had mentioned that a lot of units, including yours, had been getting new call signs and were going to be set to do rapid deployments. Basically, we told, okay, there's a bunch of Russians here, go in and clear them out. And we've been finding out now that even behind the front lines, Ukrainian commando units have been going in, clearing out trenches, and then just leaving. And we heard that a Russian apologist, a Russian quote, journalist, 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐴 may have been killed in one of these attacks. It was reasonably far from the front lines. I mean, it wasn't in a safe area, but it wasn't considered the front lines either. Ukrainian commandos came in. He was with a unit of about 10 Russians, and they cleared the entire trench and left. Are these the attacks that you were telling us about that we could expect, where a number of Ukrainian units were being retasked to actually go in and do these kinds of strikes? And what is the goal of these kinds of strikes in your view?
Yeah, we're constantly trying to clear such trenches and buildings and settlements. So my brigade is, let's say, it has a big expertise, big experience in terms of urban warfare, CQB, and that's what we're training to do, like every day. We have different types of trenches at the training grounds that we use to improve our skills and things like that. As for 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐴, unfortunately, it was not confirmed yet, but from the footage that I saw, the dude looks like him big time.
And we believe he was in the area. You're right. It has not been confirmed, and his Twitter account has come out and said that he's fine. And they showed footage of him, or they showed a photo of him, but the photo was actually from quite some time ago. Nobody knows, but yeah, it really does look like him. I've got
same equipment.
Yeah, same beard, same stash, same color of that, and that's not a common color in that region. I will say this also: that footage, if you see the whole footage that purports him getting killed, and it's actually about 3 or 4 minutes of clearing that trench, it has to be, first of all, somebody pointed out it's like the Russians. It really is like they're playing Modern Warfare, one of those games, but with the bots set to like the lowest setting, where it's like they're like, oh, there's a gun, let me jump in front of it. It was really. It was kind of difficult to watch how quickly they just kind of went out and just stood right in front of, and then ended up getting shot. But I also can't imagine anything more terrifying than having to fight in trenches like that, because it's extraordinarily close quarters. People could be hiding anywhere and everywhere, and every corner, and everything's just a corner. There's just corner, no room to maneuver, extraordinarily claustrophobic. I can't think of anything more terrifying than trying to clear something like that.
Yeah, one thing that we learned to do is we learned using AK-74 rifles in such narrow spaces. Even like back in 2016, we were specifically training to do such things, because you are you are given an order to clear the trench, and you are using what you have. And you won't always have something like, I don't know, like Glock pistol, Uzi, submachine gun or something like that. Usually it's like your AK. So we learned how to clear those trenches using bigger, like longer rifles, because they're tremendously inconvenient in the narrow spaces. But when you learn how to use them in such narrow spaces, you will master basically any other weapon as well.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. $5, Claire Noel. Claire Nolet. Apologies. Quote, a force that no tyrant in history has ever survived. The righteous and unending fury of an army of free men, an army united for a just and noble cause. Amen. Thank you for that. And Hill, $20. Slava ZSU, give Fooch and Fluffy some love for me.
I'm doing it all the time.
None of them have yet to make an appearance on this show, so we're short the critters today, I think. Yvonne Way, 3. I want to say against Swiss franc. I'm sorry, my brain is just not. But a little shout out and how's it going? Thank you so much for that. 5. British pounds. The Weasel. When is the Kerch Bridge gonna be blown up? The sooner the better for me. Any thoughts on that?
Regarding the Kerch Bridge, it depends. From what we've heard from our officials, for example, it will be destroyed when there will be such a purpose, because this bridge can also be used by Russians to retreat from Crimea. So makes total sense in my opinion.
Yeah, we've had that discussion before, and that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let me catch up on Commander McMillan's been sending me some texts, and he wanted to make a few observations that we've been seeing a lot of deep HIMARS and Storm Shadow strikes in the Russian rear, and that was one of the questions that a lot of people had about that bridge. Was that in fact a Storm Shadow? And it's been confirmed now that it was. So even though that one wasn't too far back, it looks like Ukraine both has and has been using far longer range artillery at this point. Commander McMillan said that this should make it difficult for them to supply and support their front lines more than it has thus far. So again, we're seeing a far better equipped Ukraine against a less equipped, less experienced Russian forces than what we saw last year. So we are expecting, to see a lot more in the coming weeks on that map. He also says that there are, he believes the AFU is getting closer to reaching the breakthrough point, and he believes that the trench clearing has been very slow but very steady. And once that's done, they will settle on a breakthrough point, and you will see that all open up. They're going to punch through somewhere and then start encircling these stronger positions, which is admittedly relative when it comes to the Russian front lines. And then his third comment, reports are that the bed of the reservoir above the dam is drying out. Once this happens, would open up a potential new axis for advance, although there would not be much cover for units trying to cross. And then Killer Rabbit of Here we go again. Carabanog for $5. Will you be able to bring Fooch and Fluffy when you are deployed? That's a good question. What are you going to do with them? Will you need a babysitter for them? Sorry, just worried for them and for you.
Of course, I will either hire a babysitter or maybe find some friends who will agree to, look after Fudge and Fluffy when I'm away. I will not be taking them with me for obvious reasons. Also, Fudge is scared of shots, explosions, fireworks, things that pop. So I will definitely not take Fudge with me to the front lines. It's crazy. But as for the Chongar Bridge, I was skeptical regarding the Storm Shadow missiles because those missiles do a lot of damage, and from what we saw from the amount of damage on this bridge, yes, it's damaged, but it's not destroyed like in. What was the place? Like in Berdyansk, for example, like that enemy hideout in Genichesk and other places that were hit by storm shadows. At the same time, I remember, was it in Borodyanka, maybe? There was a bridge that was hit by Tochka U several times, and again, it was not destroyed completely. There were just several holes in this bridge, literally because people learned how to build solid bridges. That's why it's very, very hard to destroy bridges unless you know how to plant explosives in some specific areas of this bridge. So striking bridges with missiles, it can damage them, but can rarely destroy them.
So that was my understanding, and I wanted to take a look at this because what I've heard is that the bridge is, quote, destroyed and that the bridge is not usable, and yet, so we have here, that's a picture of the hole, and it looks significant, but if you look at the bridge, it looks like you could probably drive around it. I've been looking into this a little bit, and my understanding is one of the problems is that there's actually a foundational support that's right behind that you can't see in the camera. You can see one on the other side, and that one's actually at quite some distance away, and there's another one behind this, and the concern is that there has been structural damage done. I don't know, but my understanding is that the bridge is actually currently unusable. I'm not an expert, but that's what it's. Let me see if I can get what I did want to get was I want to see if I can find the shot of there. Okay, there you go. So that's not the best shot, but you can see that this takes up only really, it looks like you'd have to avoid no more than about a quarter of the width of the bridge. So I would think it's usable as long as it's not a truck that needs the hole. But I mean, it's a significant. I mean, if it's supply trucks, I have to believe that it's logistical trucks. I think you'd have some concern. But yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't know. You're right. I mean,
we're talking about heavy trucks and heavy vehicles like tanks, like anti-air systems, like artillery systems, multiple launch rocket systems. So yes, there is a good question if they can pass through this bridge.
So the last thing I want to talk about, and so this is, we're going to talk about Prigozhin and what's going on. I think it's very tantalizing. I think it's got the possibility to dramatically change how things are going on the front. It also has the possibility of just fizzling out. It's very hard to tell what's going on, but it's worth covering. Before we do, I just want to remind everyone, come join us on the Discord. We have all of this. We have the all of these interviews. We have the news articles, everything like that on our Discord. We keep a very close watch on what's going on. And so I hope you'll join us there. We're also simulcasting. You'll find in the description of each of these shows on In Time and Overtime a link to the other channel. We've been getting a lot of super chats on In Time. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'd also like to try to get our last couple of dozen subs that we need on Overtime. So if you can hop over to Overtime real quick, you won't miss the show. It's still playing there, but by subscribing to that, we can sort of finish making that its own independent channel. Once we hit 1,000, it makes our lives a lot easier. It makes it so that you guys can get whichever kind of content you want, you can get from each channel. And if you want both, there's both. So thank you all very much for that. So I got to tell you, I don't like it crossed my mind that when it comes down to it, I have really absolute authority as to who is going to be on our air and who we're going to show doing what. And I realize I despise putting this man on. I have a very visceral dislike for this human being. So there's this huge part of me is like, why are we putting him on our air? I really hate doing that. But on the flip side, this is worth covering. So this is Prigozhin. He is the leader of the Wagner mercenary group that has been involved in a number of countries. I have a hard time understanding what's really going on with this group. It looks like from what I can tell, it's really more a way for him to make money by taking quote disposable people, prisoners, or whatever else he can get from other places and throwing them into front lines for other countries. Having said that, if that's the case, I don't know why he'd be so worried about the death of a whole bunch of Wagnerites, but he appears to be, and he appears to be taking a lot of this very personally for someone that, in my view, really doesn't care. So I'm curious to understand that a bit more. But this came out a couple days ago. He has been increasingly feuding with the Russian government. He started making some allegations that they were... Okay, Starsky, I want you to be that they were unprepared for this war and incapable of actually prosecuting the war, which is a big shock, and then that they had been lying about it to their own people and that the Russian commanders were completely incompetent and all sorts of allegations that he's been getting away with because he's reasonably close to Putin and he never criticized Putin directly. Then he put this out yesterday, I believe this was yesterday, which is as damning an indictment anyone has ever levied against the Russian government and lived to talk about. So let's place this one out.
Two agendas are being formed, one on the ground, the other on the president's desk. That's why we hear day in and day out about 60 leopards destroyed, about 3,000 enemy soldiers killed. When you destroy a leopard, you launch a drone and shoot the scene with a burned tank. The videos, which were widely distributed in the media, are the only time when Ukrainians ran into our aviation. The aircraft were higher in advance, and then the infantrymen attacked, and what was destroyed was 2 leopards, plus 1 T-72 tank, plus several Bradleys. All this is shown from different angles. No one destroyed 60 leopards. This is total nonsense. 𝐒𝐈𝐽 lives according to the principle that to be believed, the lie must be monstrous. And that's why deceptions happen. 2 realities on the ground. As for today, the Russian army is retreating in the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson directions. The armed forces of Ukraine are pushing through the Russian army. We wash our face with blood. Nobody gives reserves. There is no control. There are still hysterics, in which the chief of the general staff screams after a glass of vodka, like a marketplace woman, like a pig, at the phone, demanding to return the positions. And all the commander can do is report that the position is regained, and draw a red stripe on the map, several kilometers north of where it actually is today. Therefore, what we are being told is a profound deception, and we will face the fact only when as was the case on 𝐒𝐚𝐬, as was the case in Kherson, as was the case in many other places. A bunch of these scum, realizing that they have already lost a huge piece of territory, gather and declare that they have regrouped the more advantageous positions. The same thing is happening in Bakhmut. The enemy is getting deeper, deeper and deeper into our defenses. The enemy saves his soldiers. The enemy saves his equipment. All that the enemy doesn't save is ammunition, and that's why our soldiers die and leave with injuries. Every wounded soldier won't pick up a gun tomorrow. Time is rapidly collapsing.
All right, and that continues for some length, but that is astonishingly critical and honest. It's very critical of how Russia's been conducting this war, and does the one thing you're never supposed to do, which is points out the propaganda, points out that no, it wasn't 70 Panzers, it was 2, taken from any number of angles, and stunning to hear this. This also, in my mind, kind of indicts him further, because he strikes me as a very smart man, which means he's known all of this from the beginning. I don't think that he's just pissed now because they've turned on him. This isn't, he's not he's not grown a conscience here. None of this is new. So he posted this on Telegram, and somebody pointed out in the live chat it's accurate. He's not getting a lot of play in the Russian media, but anyone who has access to Telegram can access this. Shortly after this, one of his positions, the positions of the Wagnerites, was attacked by Russian military, suffering heavy losses. So let's get that. That was after this, and presumably in response to him saying this publicly. So this is that attack.
Ты что такое, блядь, было? Сука! Иди нахуй, охуй, блядь! Куда нахуй не добьют они, нихуя! Это, блядь, не знаю, союзнички, может, нахуй! Блядь, ебали, походу, там пацаны же были, блядь! Давай, бегом, быстрее! Давай, все! Сука, ебать, блядь, бухлом ушах, блядь! Блядь! Сука, ебаный в рот, блядь! Нихуя! Ебать! Сука, тут! Да, так, смотри! Блядь! Ебать! Жжём! Вот там, нахуй, в этом! Блядь! Они все 200, блядь, ебаный в рот! Слушай, было там больше, 2, что ли, 3, блядь, сколько? Ебать! Ебать! Пидорасы! Сейчас, брат, подожди!
Это трудно для меня понимать русский язык, когда он говорит медленно и просто. Я не понимал ничего об этом. Пожалуйста, что он сказал? По-английски, пожалуйста.
They were saying like, can I curse here?
Yes, sir, you may.
Yeah, they were like, oh fuck, there were our men. Holy fuck, look, those were our tanks. Something like 3 or 4 of them or something like that. And basically, like 90% of what they were saying was like cursing, and they looked surprised, so to say. Not positively surprised though. But again, what Prigozhin said just previously, confirms my statement that you should never watch or listen, Russian media, because it makes no sense.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, honestly, and I don't know how you feel watching this. He is obviously a enemy, genuine fucking enemy of all Ukrainian people. What he says is almost complimentary. It's sort of like, yeah, here's how Ukraine is doing everything in this war right. Here's how we're doing everything wrong. And he's confirming everything that Ukrainians have been saying about propaganda, about, no, we didn't lose 70 leopards. And he's just like, obviously not. It's just like, it's excuse me, almost complimentary to have a sworn enemy confirming everything you've been saying. I don't know how to feel about that. But shortly after this attack, oh, please, were you going to say something?
Yes, it's just I wanted to say that the biggest compliment to us is that they started fighting with each other. 𝐒𝐸𝐿 despises Prigozhin. Prigozhin despises 𝐒𝐸𝐿. And there's absolutely no unity between them. And the reason for that is when the imaginary world based on lies collides with the real life, such things is what you will see a lot. So that's it.
Yeah, it's it's the line about riding on the back of a tiger, but in this case, I mean, it's even worse. It's there is no loyalty in Russia to anyone, and except the person with the biggest gun. And I think he thought that he could be that person. And when people realized that's who he was trying to be, yeah, they weren't having it. So I want to say about 3 hours ago, Prigozhin put a message out on the official Telegram channel for the Wagner PR, in which he said he was, quote, declaring war on the Russian Ministry of Defense. Now, the fact that it's not in all of Russia means he may be using a bit more hyperbole, but we're going to read his message. PMC Wagner Commanders Council has made a decision. The evil brought by the military leadership of the country must be stopped. They neglect the lives of soldiers. They forget the word justice. No fucking shit. Forget the word justice, and we will bring it back. Those who destroyed today our guys, who destroyed tens of thousands of Russian soldiers, will be punished. I am asking no one resist. Everyone who will try to resist, we will consider them a danger and destroy them immediately, including any checkpoints on our way and any aviation that we see above our heads. I'm asking everyone to remain calm, do not succumb to provocations, and remain in their houses. Ideally, those along the way do not go outside. After we finish what we started, we will return to the front lines to protect our motherland. Presidential authority, government, Ministry of Internal Affairs, Zaporizhzhia, and other departments will continue operating as before. We will deal with those who destroy Russian soldiers, and we will return to the front lines. Justice in the army will be restored, and after this, justice to all of Russia. The FSB has replied, saying that they consider this a call to a revolution in Russia, and that they have opened up a criminal investigation. They find no evidence that Prigozhin was targeted. Yeah, they find no evidence that Prigozhin was targeted. No shit. Let me see if I can find the full statement there. The Anti-Terrorism Committee has stated that in connection with these statements, they believe that he is calling for an armed rebellion, and that in fact Wagner is preparing to invade Russia, which would be the second time in the last month that somebody's done that. They demand an immediate halt to all of his illegal actions. So that's where we stand. It's amazing. I don't know that Wagner has much strength left, but the last group that invaded Russia didn't need much. Do you have any predictions? Do you have any thoughts? Is this going to be a thing? Are they going to actually try to invade Russia? What do you think? It's surprising to me, at least. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
One thing I noticed quite a while ago is that Prigozhin does not follow the informational agenda of the of Russian authorities, of Russian elites. He doesn't do that, which is his biggest problem. Because this was the strongest weapon that Russians had, and he didn't use it. So basically, what I predict is that they will not be able to reach Russia. Maybe they will be eliminated on the territory of Ukraine. I just can't see them invading. This invasion of Russia over and over again looks like a good old tradition already. So I don't think that they will even make it to Russia. Something tells me that.
Right. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. And we have two more pieces of information, then we will wrap it up. That is the bridge. You can see in that image there the extent of the damage. This shows it beautifully, actually. You can really see the hole and how big it is. It looks like it's basically taking up one lane, which is similar to what we saw on the Kherson bridge, but this one's still a lot easier to, I mean, this is not nearly as big a bridge. But they have set up now a pontoon, which you can see. It is between the two bridges. It's being pointed to by the red arrow. That is a pontoon that we believe at this point has been set up to be able to still continue to set up supplies. I think lucky for the Russians that, you can't target pontoons, obviously. You can only target bridges. Nobody could ever target a pontoon. So I'm sure everything there will be fine. Anyways, so that's the current status. It looks like they're not going to be using the bridge if at all possible, and they've set up a pontoon. Also, from blog Ukraine official, Russian state media has now banned all media from publishing statements by Prigozhin, and this includes all Telegram channels. Prigozhin is now banned from all Telegram channels, so we will see how that goes. So before we wrap it up, once again, if you have not yet liked and subscribed, please do. If you like the content, share it. That's actually just one of the greatest ways to help us out, is share it. Don't share it to people who don't want to see it. Don't spam the link to places where it doesn't belong. That doesn't help anybody, doesn't help us, doesn't help you, doesn't help the people who don't want to see it. But if you know somebody who's interested in the content, share it. It's good for them. They get to see it. It's good for us. It's good for you, because you're helping people out. So we hope you guys will like, share, subscribe. If you have not yet subscribed to our sister channel, which is also streaming this over time, that's in fact where most people got the link, please do that. Once it hits 1,000, makes it a lot easier for us to complete this sort of splitting of the channel, which really sucks. It's been a difficult process. I've hated it. You've hated it. Our mods have hated it. But it means that people can pick and choose the content they want from In Time a lot easier. We've had a lot of people say, why is an educational channel covering breaking news? And then we see people say, well, why is a news channel doing educational stuff? We're both. We believe that both are integrally tied. You cannot do one without another. You cannot understand current events and the news without an understanding of context and without an understanding of science, without an understanding of critical thinking and all of those other things. But there are people who don't want that. So that's on one channel. The news is on the other. You can decide. But if you can help us hit that 1,000 mark, we would really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you. Operator Starsky, any thoughts before we go? Any final thoughts?
Not much. Looking forward to, to the resolution to this interesting situation that they have. Again, not like we expected this to happen the way it happened. But we were talking about it, I think, even like last year, because it meant to happen, basically.
Well, Prigozhin strikes me as being very ambitious and politically minded, and I think he probably reached for too much in going for the brass ring in Russia, and I think that's where it collapsed. And the reality is, there's no society that's perfect. There are problems in democratic societies. There's problems with a free press, and Russia has actually been able to use their propaganda machines reasonably successfully because they've been targeting the vulnerabilities of that. But having said that, I think it's far worse to live in a society where the means to power is such abject sort of betrayal and just everyone climbing over the corpses of. And it's what you see in any dictatorial government. You see it in China. You see it and it leads to the collapse of society because it is ultimately not sustainable because everybody is incentivized to undermine each other instead of to at least try to work together. In the U.S., Democrats and Republicans don't like each other, but there is actually some genuine incentive to work together, and I don't think you see that in a lot of these other countries. So that I think something like this was always inevitable. It'll be interesting to watch. Operator Starsky, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week at the same time. In the meantime, please, sir, stay safe. And I look forward. Thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Have a good night, all.